I stood by the tall glass window of my office, the city lights glittering beneath me like restless stars. My reflection stared back, smooth silk blouse, pearl earrings, hair pinned into a careful bun. Outwardly, I was the picture of composure. Inwardly, a storm hummed under my skin. The buzz of my phone broke the silence. An email notification. Subject line: Proposal meeting, Phoenix Innovations. My lips curved, not into a smile, but something sharper. Phoenix Innovations, the company headed by him. My former boss. The man who once laughed at me across a crowded boardroom, dismissing my ideas with a smirk that burned into my memory. Now fate, or maybe irony, was setting our names on the same agenda. Competitors. Equals. Rivals. I pressed my fingertips against the cool glass, studying myself. For years, I had buried that nightmarish memory under layers of hard work, small victories, and silent resilience. I never thought I'd see him again, not like this. But here we were. My company, my creation, my effort, standing toe-to-toe with his empire. A part of me still felt the sting of his words, the humiliation I carried home that day. But another part, the stronger part, savored the twist. My boss mocked my effort. I whispered to myself, straightening my shoulders. Now I'm his competitor. I was 23 when I first walked into that office. Freshly graduated, eager, maybe even naive. My name badge still smelled of new plastic, and I carried a leather-bound notebook everywhere, a gift from my grandmother who told me, "Write down your ideas, sweetheart. Even the smallest ones can change your life." Back then, I believed effort alone could carry me. I stayed late, volunteered for projects no one wanted, and poured myself into research. I thought if I worked hard enough, someone would notice. And someone did, my boss, Richard Evans. But not the way I hoped. Richard was the kind of man who thrived on intimidation. Tall, sharp suit, sharper tongue. The first time I presented an idea, nervously flipping open my notebook, voice trembling, he chuckled. Not kindly, not encouragingly, but in a way that sliced through me. "Cute effort, Emily," he said, using that word cute like a weapon. The room laughed with him, and my chest tightened so hard I thought I might burst. My fingers clutched the pen until they trembled. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced myself not to cry. It didn't stop there. Week after week, I tried again. A marketing pitch here, a product improvement there. And each time, Richard would roll his eyes, cut me off, or mock my enthusiasm in front of the team. "Save it for your diary," he sneered once, nodding at my notebook. That night, I sat alone at my tiny apartment's kitchen table, staring at the pages I had filled with scribbles of possibility. His voice echoed in my head, louder than my own. For a moment, I wanted to give up. Maybe I wasn't built for this world. But then I remembered my grandmother's words, "Even the smallest ideas can change your life." I closed my notebook, held it against my chest, and whispered to myself, "If he won't believe in me, I'll learn to believe in myself." The next morning, I walked into Richard's office, handed in my resignation letter, and left without looking back. My hands shook, my heart raced, but my decision was firm. I wasn't quitting my dream. I was quitting him. That day, I promised myself something. Someday, somehow, I would prove that my effort was never cute. It was powerful, and it would build something he could never take from me. The day I walked out of Richard's office with my resignation letter still trembling in his hand, I had no plan, only a notebook filled with ideas and a determination that pulsed like fire in my veins. The first few months were brutal. I picked up odd freelance jobs, designing basic websites, writing copy for small businesses, even tutoring kids in the evenings. My apartment became a battlefield of sticky notes, coffee cups, and unpaid bills. Some nights I'd curl up on the couch, laptop warming my legs, whispering, "Just one more email, just one more pitch." Failure knocked often. Clients ghosted me. Proposals got rejected. Once, I invested every dollar I had into a project that collapsed overnight. I cried into my pillow, mascara smudging the fabric, wondering if Richard had been right all along. But I kept returning to that leather-bound notebook. Each page was a reminder of why I started. I sketched ideas for a digital marketing consultancy. Small businesses needed fresh strategies, and I believed I could give them a voice in a world dominated by giants. Then came Margaret. She was a retired executive I met at a networking workshop, a woman with salt and pepper hair and an energy that filled the room. After I nervously presented my half-baked pitch, she pulled me aside. "You have something," she said, her eyes sharp but kind. "But you need discipline, direction, and you need to stop apologizing for taking up space." She became my mentor. Margaret introduced me to her contacts, critiqued my presentations, and, most importantly, reminded me of my worth when self-doubt threatened to drown me. Slowly, wins began to stack. My first paying client, a florist struggling to sell online, tripled her orders within 2 months of my campaign. Then a boutique clothing store hired me, followed by a local cafe. Each success was a spark, lighting a path I could finally see. I worked long nights, fueled by instant noodles and sheer stubbornness. Some days I'd sit at my second-hand desk, nails chipped, hair in a messy bun, wondering if anyone would ever take me seriously. But when I looked at the growing list of clients and their gratitude, I knew I was building something real. I never told my old colleagues. On social media, I posted vague updates, working on projects, grateful for opportunities, but never the full story. I wanted my growth to be mine, not a performance for those who doubted me. Years passed. What started as a one-woman hustle grew into a team of 5, then 20. I registered my company, Luminous Strategies, and rented a small but sleek office downtown. I hired women who had been underestimated like me, giving them a place where their ideas weren't laughed at but celebrated. Every step forward, I thought of Richard, not with bitterness, but with clarity. He had given me the greatest push of all, not validation but rejection. And in that rejection, I found my reason to rise. By the time Luminous Strategies secured its first million-dollar client, I looked around my office, glass walls, fresh orchids on the desk, my grandmother's notebook framed on the shelf, and realized something profound. I hadn't just built a business. I had built myself. The email had been clear. Phoenix Innovations and Luminous Strategies would be pitching for the same contract. A global cosmetics brand was looking for a fresh campaign, and the winner would walk away with a deal worth millions. That morning, I arrived at the downtown hotel hosting the pitch. The lobby gleamed with marble floors, chandeliers catching the light like diamonds. My heels clicked against the stone, each step echoing with a confidence I had fought years to earn. As I checked in, I saw him. Richard Evans. My former boss. His hair was grayer now, but the arrogance hadn't aged a day. He stood surrounded by his team, gesturing broadly as they hung on his every word. Then his eyes found mine. For a split second, confusion crossed his face, followed by recognition. And then dismissal. The same old smirk tugged at his lips. But I wasn't the same girl clutching her notebook. I lifted my chin, offered a polite nod, and walked past him toward the conference hall. The pitch session began. Executives from the cosmetics brand filled the room, their eyes sharp, notebooks ready. Phoenix Innovations presented first. Richard strutted to the front, delivering a polished but predictable strategy. His slides were sleek, his tone confident, but to me, it felt hollow, like a song played too many times. Then it was my turn. I stepped to the front, my silk blouse catching the light, my team behind me. For a moment, I let the silence settle. I wanted them to see me, not nervous, not desperate, ready. "Good afternoon," I began, my voice steady. "I'm Emily Carter, founder and CEO of Luminous Strategies. And we believe beauty isn't just sold, it's experienced." I watched Richard's head snap toward me at the word CEO. The smirk vanished. His brows furrowed, disbelief flickering across his face as I continued. Our presentation unfolded like a story. We showed data, yes, but wrapped in emotion, authenticity, creativity. My team demonstrated social campaigns designed to empower women, product strategies tied to real lives, not just profit margins. Each slide pulsed with originality. Each word resonated with truth. By the time I finished, the room was alive. Executives leaned forward, nodding, whispering to one another. When the applause came, it wasn't polite, it was genuine. I turned slightly, letting my gaze fall on Richard. His jaw was tight, his hands clasped too firmly on the table. For once, he had no words. After the session, one of the cosmetics executives approached me directly. "Emily, your vision feels different. Fresh. Exactly what we've been searching for." She shook my hand firmly. "We'll be in touch." Richard lingered nearby, silent. Finally, he approached, his voice low enough for only me to hear. "You're running Lumina?" His tone carried disbelief, almost a plea. I met his eyes evenly. "I built it. From scratch." He opened his mouth, then closed it. The man who once told me my effort was cute now stood speechless. As I walked away, my team surrounding me, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall of the hallway. Same notebook tucked in my bag, same determination in my heart, but everything else had changed. The girl he mocked was gone. The woman before him was his equal. No, his competitor. 2 weeks later, the official news came. Lumina Strategies had secured the contract. The global cosmetics brand chose us. The announcement rippled across the industry, and my inbox overflowed with congratulations. But one email stood out, short, hesitant, and almost unbelievable. From Richard Evans. Subject: Opportunity to connect. I stared at it for a long time, the irony almost too rich. My old boss, the man who mocked me, now wanted a meeting. When we finally sat across from each other in my office, all glass walls and polished oak furniture, he looked smaller somehow. His tailored suit was still sharp, but his confidence seemed frayed at the edges. His eyes flicked to the framed leather notebook on my shelf, then back to me. "Emily," he began, forcing a smile. "Congratulations. Really, your presentation was impressive." I folded my hands, leaning back in my chair. "Thank you, Richard." He cleared his throat. "Look, I'll be honest. Phoenix has been struggling. The industry's shifting, and you clearly have a fresh approach. I was hoping perhaps we could explore a partnership." There it was. The power dynamic reversed. He, once the gatekeeper of my career, now sat across from me asking for a chance. I let the silence stretch, savoring the weight of the moment. Then I spoke, measured and firm. "A partnership is possible. But if we move forward, there will be conditions." His brow furrowed. "Conditions?" "Yes," I said, leaning forward. "First, respect. Every voice at the table matters. No dismissing ideas, no mocking effort. That culture ends here." He shifted uncomfortably, but nodded. "Second," I continued, "investment in people. Especially young women. Too many walk away from this industry because they're underestimated. That changes if we collaborate." Richard's jaw tightened. "And the third," I allowed a small, almost ironic smile. "You acknowledge where this began. You admit that the girl you once laughed at, the one with the notebook, built something strong enough to rival you." His face colored, pride battling shame. For a long moment he said nothing. Finally, his voice came out low. "You're right. I was wrong." I studied him, the man who once made me cry at my kitchen table. There was no satisfaction in crushing him, only in knowing I no longer needed his validation. "Good," I said softly. "Because this isn't about revenge, Richard. It's about growth. For both of us." He nodded, subdued. The arrogance I once knew was gone, replaced by something almost human. As he left my office, my team exchanged curious glances. "What was that about?" one of them asked. I smiled, smoothing the sleeve of my blazer. "Just setting the record straight." And in that moment, I realized I didn't need to humiliate him. My success had already rewritten the story. In the months that followed, things shifted. Word spread quickly about Lumina's rise, and soon we weren't just another agency. We were a name people respected. Clients sought us out, Employees were proud to wear our badge, and young women in the industry began writing to me, saying they finally felt seen. Even Richard changed. Slowly, awkwardly, but noticeably. At joint meetings, he listened more than he spoke. He asked questions instead of cutting people off. Once, after a presentation from one of my junior staff, I caught him nodding with genuine approval. It was strange, almost disarming, but also proof that people could evolve, if given the chance. One evening, after a long day, I sat alone in my office. The city lights shimmered outside, but my gaze fell on the framed leather notebook on my shelf. The pages inside were filled with messy scribbles, half-formed ideas, dreams I once doubted would ever matter. I walked over, opened the glass case, and ran my fingers across the worn cover. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. Even the smallest ideas can change your life. And they had. I thought back to the girl who once cried at her kitchen table, humiliated and broken. She hadn't vanished. She lived inside me, a reminder of where I started and why I fought. But now, she shared space with a woman who no longer asked for permission to be heard. The journey hadn't been easy. It was carved from rejection, built on sleepless nights, and stitched together with resilience. But standing here now, I knew every setback had been a stepping stone. I smiled, closing the notebook gently. My boss mocked my effort. I whispered, the words carrying no bitterness anymore, only strength. Then I turned toward the city skyline, the lights stretching endlessly ahead. Now, I said softly, almost like a vow, I'm his competitor. And with that, I switched off the office lights, walked out, and stepped into a future entirely my own.